In today's episode, we're really going to address addiction, spirit, and the courage to be seen. If this is a little bit triggering for you, then I encourage you to just to sit in this moment and just allow yourself to breathe, because you never know, you might learn something from it, and I hope you do.
Do you want to know everything? What your heart won't say, but your soul can sing. From love to loss and the space between, she's got the light to lift the unseen. Hope, healing, and transformation. Do you want to know everything? Do you want to know everything?
Welcome to Hope, Healing, and Transformation. My name's Lisa Williams, and today we're going to be talking about addiction, spirit, and the courage to be seen in this moment. And as always, if anything is a little bit raw or real or triggering for you, then please know that there are help support lines. We will put them in the actual show notes for you, and we are there to help you. But I came across a reel the other day. In fact, my husband did. And he said, Lisa, you need to do a podcast on this. And it was kind of a little bit of a punch in the gut, I'll be honest with you. And it said the addiction isn't about alcohol or the drugs. It's about hiding from yourself. And I sat and thought about it and I went, whoa, yeah, man, they're right. It is. And that's the truth that we actually don't want to admit. And I will tell you that addiction comes in 1,000 disguises. Okay. It comes in so many different ways. And I've had my own journey with the addiction part of it. And it happens. Yes, it can come from a bottle of alcohol. Yes, it can come from a pill, but it can also be workaholic. You can be a workaholic. You could be absently minded scrolling, shopping. It's binge watching till 3 a.m. It is all of those. It's even spiritual bypassing, using rituals, meditations, and readings to not connect, but actually to escape. And that is something I really want to address today, because we are trying to escape so many different things, and we are missing the real truth about where we actually need to be. At its core, the addiction part of us is about avoidance. And it's about silencing the part of ourselves that we don't want to face or we don't want to deal with. And I'm just being honest with you. I've lived it. I know it. I've been sober almost 3 years now. And it was not a decision. It was not a moment that I had this big aha awakening and said, Lisa, you have a problem. It was really an alignment thing. And I realized, and Chris and I talked about it only the other day. I said it was a combination. It was a combination of COVID. It was a combination of him going to Afghanistan. It was a combination of what was going in our relationship. And it was a combination of what had happened prior to that and being in a space where I was bullied. And I drank. And I drank. And I continued to drink. And I may have joked about it. And many of you who, if you've been in one of my classes, would say, hey, alcohol, vodka, I was talking about it. But I didn't realize until afterwards, when I actually became sober, that I said, wow, I had a problem. And it wasn't really a problem that's taken over my life, but I knew it was there. And it was actually Gabby Bernstein. It was a very interesting story, and I will share this with you because I think it was my own story, and it was really powerful for me. And I had been doing some work with a dear friend of mine, Jay Stinnett, and he's been on my podcast, and he's done some amazing work in the history of AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. And I was doing a lot of work where I was connecting with him, and I was helping him with some things. And I remember telling Gabby Bernstein about it, and we were there. We were actually having dinner, and I was telling her about it, and we were talking, and I picked up my glass of wine, and she didn't, without judgment, and there was no judgment, is she literally looked at my wine. She said, "How's that going for you?" And I stopped and I went, "Oh, here I am doing some really sacred work with a real prominent figure in, the historian space of AA. And I was working with the energies of Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob. And I stopped and I went, huh. And she didn't say anything else. And I swear to you, I get really emotional about this, is that moment changed my life, because I stopped in that space. And I was at a big conference. I was with a friend of mine who drank, and she's like, "I can't believe you're stopping drinking." And I said, "I'm done." And we went off to see Jay that couple of days later, and I stopped. And I remember contacting Gabby. I remember contacting her and just saying, "Hey," and it was on my first year of sobriety. And she sent me a video back. She was in the car with somebody, and she was obviously going to an event. And she sent me this video, and I still look at that video, and I'm so grateful for where it is. But what I didn't realize is what was actually happening to me, what I was escaping. I didn't realize that I was escaping the problems that I'd had in being bullied. I didn't realize, and the abuse that I was having. I didn't realize I was hiding away from the fact that my marriage, I wasn't even sure if my marriage was even going to survive. I wasn't sure if about the fact that Chris was coming back from Afghanistan, um, the pressures of COVID and everything else. And then my business. And I went, you know what, I have to stop. And it used to feel like there was a shame about it. And honestly, I think if I actually thought that, used to think that there was some shame about having an issue, or having this moment where I know I fell into the alcohol. And I used to think that people would think less of me. And so I actually kept it quiet now. But one of the things that, and like I said, I don't really realize, I didn't at the time think there was a problem, but now I realize there was. And I realize now that sobriety has been a massive strength for me. And some of you are listening and probably don't even realize where I was. And to be fair with you, when I went through my public divorce and I went through a lot of stuff, I often turned to the alcohol. And I realized that me being sober now was standing in my own power, my own space, and saying, I'm no longer hiding from myself. I'm no longer going to numb my own intuition, the spirit that's inside of me. I'm now going to be real. And so let's talk about addiction. And you may have a friend of yours that has a shopping addiction, who is a workaholic. And I, as much as Chris talks about me working a lot, and yes, I do, I try to find balance. And I am aware of finding balance. So I know that when he's home, the moments between my clients or meetings, I'll go down and spend with him, because those are the moments that I never get back again. Those are the moments that I can be in with my intuition here. And I realized that my own sobriety was a spiritual pathway. It was really about me not allowing myself to be seen. And I will share with you, when I stepped away from the public eye, it was because I didn't think I was good enough to be in the public eye, because I had been told and been bullied in a way that I told I was not good enough. Not by anybody else who was, by networks or anything, or Ray or or producers or anyone else, my manager, my agent. It was the people that I had allowed closer to me, who I'd allowed to see the vulnerable place. And now it was about me being seen. So let's pull back this curtain a little bit. And addiction isn't just about the big obvious things, drugs, alcohol, gambling, whatever. Addiction is really subtle, and it sneaks into your everyday life. And we've all done it. How many times have you actually lost hours in your day because of your scrolling? That's an addiction. That's a way that we detach. How many of you have turned to food, shopping, sex, not for joy, but to fill a void? That's an addiction. And I'm being quite in your face here. How many of you have tried to hide between being busy because you don't want to sit in silence with yourself? We don't want to sit in silence because we don't want to face stuff. And that's actually really hard, especially when there's so much anxiety in the world. And the anxiety can be overcome by calmness, by calming our central nervous system, by releasing our vagus nerve and allowing our nervous system to do its thing. But instead, what we're doing is we are detaching, we are disassociating. You see, addiction isn't about the substance or a behavior. It's about what we're running away from. It's about the presence or lack of it. And I think here is where spirituality needs to come in. Because true spirituality is about that somewhat radical presence. It's about having the courage to sit in a stillness. It is about the willingness to feel the ache, to face our shadows, our blind spots, to be with yourself without flinching. And that's really hard sometimes. It's really, really hard because sometimes that stuff is really painful. One of the things that really helped me in that moment was actually I had started to do a lot more of sacred journey space. I'd started to do a lot more plant medicine. I had worked with different people. I'd done plant medicine for years before, but I really sat in the plant medicine space. And I realized that I was okay in facing my past and facing my trauma and facing what had gone on and the things that I had never spoken to about anybody. And I felt that I finally could have this place of trust. And in that place, it was like, wow. And I realized that I had to start talking to myself. I realized that I had to allow myself to be safe. And that is the reason why addiction and spirituality can't coexist. Because addiction, in whatever shape or form it comes in, is the opposite to connection. And we need to connect. And I'll tell you, I'm talking from experience here, my friends. And some of you might disagree with this, but I will tell you for me that I thought I was being spiritual. I thought that spirituality was that I could communicate with people's loved ones. I was intuitive and everything else, but I missed the connection for me. I was great for everyone else, but I'd missed it on my behalf. It severed me from my spirit, from my truth, from being present in that moment. And the hardest thing is the realization of it. And, it was true. Now, don't get me wrong. There are times that I sometimes do mindlessly scroll on Facebook. But I've noticed it. The more I'm present, the more I am walking my truth, the more I am walking my talk, the more that I am journaling, meditating, visualizing, reading, I am learning, I am working on me, the less I scroll, the less I don't even know when the last time I played a game on my phone. And I sometimes think, oh, maybe I need to check in to make sure I'm not being kicked out of the group, because I was one of the highest ranking people in that group because I was escaping. Yes, do I love to watch TV shows, and do I like to watch binge watch? Absolutely. Who doesn't? But I now know when to cut off, and I actually know when I want to sleep and when I need me, because I am more connected to me than ever have I ever been before. And yet there are times that, do I want to shop? Absolutely, I want to shop. But I also know that there are times that I'm like, okay, I'm having me. So if you're listening to this and thinking, well, I don't drink, I don't do drugs, it doesn't apply to me, I'm going to lovingly challenge you to, where are you hiding? What is your numbing agent? Because we all have one. We all have one. And, I say it to my students, especially if they're doing the Certified Spiritual Advisor course. I get them off social media, reading fiction, all of the escapes, and I get them to be present in their life. And some people have these moments of, wow, I don't want to go back to social media again. So one of the greatest things for me about in my own sobriety, it wasn't about abstaining from alcohol. Because there are times that I'm like, somebody's having a glass of wine. I'll say, can I just smell your wine? Because I used to love red wine. But the smell of it gives me that taste of like, yeah, you know what? That doesn't do it for me anymore. What it was for me was about surrender. I truly learned the art of surrender. And I have the thing tattooed on me. Many of you have like, what is that thing tattooed on you? It is, and I'm probably going to pronounce it right, but it's Isvana Pranadana, which is surrender to spirit, or surrender to the divine in Sanskrit. And it was really about surrendering. Now, the 12 steps are radical because they start with that we've admitting that we're powerless and that our lives have become unmanageable. That is humility. That is honesty. That is the first crack in our armor of being in denial. But what we have to understand is we are now surrendering. When people say to me, Lisa, I can't surrender, I'm like, it's because you don't know what surrender is. Surrender is letting go. It is about being in the place and saying, I am bigger than who I am in this physical space. I am surrendering and I'm part of the bigger universe. And then there's this spiritual piece that comes is, when we look at the spirituality behind it, that there is a power that is bigger than ourselves. Whether we call it God, whether we call it universe, whether we call it spirit, whether we call it divine, whatever we call it, there is this point that we are bigger than anything. And that point and that connection is that I can't do life alone. You're listening to this because there's a spiritual aspect within you that says, Lisa may have some answers here or may have some wisdom that I need in my daily life. We all need connection. We are all needing this moment that we have to have a connection to something because we can't do it alone. And we have to allow ourselves to be in this place. Surrendering into this is to accept things that we can't do or we cannot change. Because there are some people we can't change and some things we can't change. But to have courage to know and to take on the things that I can. And to understand what the difference is. Some of you may know exactly what I'm talking about. Some of you may not, and that's okay. That in itself is a spiritual practice: acceptance, courage, and wisdom. And when we look at these three things, it comes into this bigger truth. It comes into this moment where when we look at going into sobriety, or when we look at saying, I no longer want to do this, that starts this moment of surrendering. And it starts in this moment of surrendering and realizing that whatever has taken shape, this addiction pattern, it thrives in isolation. But when we're allowing this to come out, we're finding we're connected, whether you're connected to a group of people. This is the reason why AA works. You're now no longer doing it alone. You're actually doing it with people. You are connecting on a spiritual level. You know, if you are going to a church, or if you are finding help, like some people, I have two friends of mine who were not religious until one of them realized that there was a deep part of their relationship missing, and the other person was finding it elsewhere. And then they turned to God. They found it in community of their church, in the spiritual aspect of having a belief in a higher power, that connection to spirit, and the connection to other people walking the same path, no matter what it is. It is that connection that we are bigger than what we are. And knowing that I am here and I'm just a small drop in the ocean. It is a really powerful point. For years, I hid behind alcohol. It was my mask. There has been alcohol issues in my family. My uncle was a massive alcoholic. I mean, huge. I mean, it was hard for him. And one of the things was, as I related to him, it was interesting. My uncle Stephen, I remember how they used to talk about him in my family. And I felt so sorry for him. And he used to ask me questions. And I would want to answer him back. But I was told, don't talk to him. But I felt something inside of me wanting to talk to him. And it was awful, you know, and I felt torn. At a very, very, very young age, I felt so torn. And I learned from a very young age that, wow, that I was told that it was wrong to talk to him, but something innately was in me that he was struggling. And I realized what it was. And later I have the awareness and I have the understanding what it was. And I realized that it dulled the noise of grief for him. And for me, it dulled the noise of my worth. It dulled the noise of I'm not good enough. It dulled that noise because there was part of me that didn't feel good enough for my relationship, didn't feel good enough to be out in the public eye, didn't feel good enough as a parent. And honestly, I felt like I was being betrayed in every sense of the word. And it softened my pain. It gave me a way to escape the rawness of the life. But here's the truth. The more I drank, the more I disappeared, the more I realized I wasn't living. I was hiding. And I was literally hiding because COVID was happening at the same time. My sobriety ripped away a mask, and suddenly there was no filter, no buffer, no escape. It was me, raw, exposed, and vulnerable. And I will tell you, truly, at the beginning, I loved it. But then I hated it. And it was only when I was around other people that we were talking about stories and their sobriety that I went, wow, I did not even realize how much I had fallen into it. I had no idea how much I was escaping. And it's not the fact that I needed the alcohol. It was the fact that I chose it. I didn't need it. I didn't need to drink because there were days that I didn't. I chose it. And I chose it for many reasons. And that was the powerful thing. I had chosen to hide, and that I needed to face my shadows, my grief, my disappointments, my patterns. And slowly, through my own meditation, through communication, through community, through being connected to spirit, it kept me going through realizing that my wounds, my trauma, my patterns were power, and that I could harness and anchor in so much energy to bring that through, that now I sit here knowing truly who I am, and that my connection to spirit outweighs anything. It was the beginning of my life. My husband drinks, it's fine. And you know what's interesting is he will absolutely say, I prefer you now you no longer drink. I don't even turn to, some people say, oh, you go into plant medicine occasionally once every few months. I don't even microdose now. I'm real. I sit in my own thoughts every single day. And it was truly the beginning of my life. It forced me to meet myself, who I am. And in meeting that, it found freedom. I found out I didn't need to hide anymore. This might actually hit a nerve for you. This may hit a nerve that what is it that you're escaping? And there's no shame about it, my friends. There's absolutely no shame. I want to say, if it's making you wake up and say, oh my gosh, wow, I honor that in you. I honor that in you, because what you're saying is you're realizing that you actually need to say yes to yourself. It's standing in front of that mirror and saying, who am I really? Who am I really without the crutch, without this armor, without the lie, without what I'm trying to escape? And let's be real, there are some things in that mirror that shows us that things that we don't want to see. The regrets, the wounds, the patterns, the things that we swore that we'd never repeat, the way that our parents are, and we say we wouldn't be our parents. I am a reflection of both of my parents. And I'll be honest with you, I used to blame a lot on my parents. I don't now. Because what I've done is I'm healing that wound. That mirror that I now look in is my resilience. It's my strength. It's my spirit. It's who I am. The person I used to be. I'm now fully seen, and I accept all that I've done in my life. And trust me, I've done a lot. I can't go back into the hiding. You can't unknow your own power. So it really brings us to these moments of these practical spaces that you have to ask yourself, what is it that I'm avoiding right now? And maybe it's a point that you need to journal on it. What would it look like if you have to face who you are instead of running from it? What is spirit trying to show you in this moment of discomfort? And then you can replace it. You can replace maybe the alcohol. You can replace the scrolling. You can replace the prescription medication with a breath, with a journal, with a prayer. And that's how presence begins. It's one moment at a time. So addiction isn't this failure, and it isn't weakness. It's a coping strategy that stops working. Sobriety isn't about deprivation. It's about liberation. It's about walking through this fire of truth and coming out alive, awake, unshamed. And when we look at this, it's so powerful. If you are struggling with any of this right now, you're not broken. You're not wrong. You're not alone. It's okay. There is community out there. There are people out there. There are support groups that you can go to. There is a path. There is the connection to your own intuition. There is a spirit that has never left your side, your guides, your ancestors. And if all else, let me tell you right now, you don't have to hide anymore. It's really about being true to yourself. It's about honoring who you are in this moment, in this presence. So let's just close here with a simple reflection. If it feels safe to do that, just close your eyes and just take a deep breath in. And as you exhale, whisper to yourself, I'm willing to see myself. I'm willing to be present. And I'm willing to heal. Because this isn't about running from who you are. It's about remembering who you have been all along. That person, that small being, that inner wisdom, that soul that wants to come out and truly be seen. Stop hiding. You deserve to be seen. You deserve to be heard. You deserve to be witnessed. You deserve to be honored. And I am here to hold that space for you. And it is my true honor to do that. So I would love to hear your story. I would love to hear from you. Find community. Find a way of finding your truth. And allow yourself to shine. And take that moment just to find that peace within you. Thank you for allowing me to share, my friends. If you need any help, please know the show notes are there for you. We put some support groups if you need it. But recognize that this is your time to shine because we want to see you. My name is Lisa Williams. Thank you for listening to Hope, Healing and Transformation.
Do you feel a whisper in the back of your mind, like the truth is waiting, but it's hard to find? Well, maybe there's magic in the words she brings. Close your eyes and listen in. Do you want to know everything? What your heart won't say, but your soul can sing. From love to loss and the space between, she's got the light to lift the unseen. Hope, healing and transformation. Do you want to know everything? Do you want to know everything?
Thank you so much for joining me today. And remember, the information shared on this podcast is meant to inspire and support you, but it's not a replacement for personalized advice from a qualified professional. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with someone who might benefit. And don't forget to tune in next time. Until then, take care and keep believing in something better.